Men. Hey, what's up guys? Explanation Pro is here. Today I'll explain one of the most confusing movie, titled Tenet. So let's start the explanation without any delay. The movie begins in an opera house in Kiev. While the orchestra is playing in front of a packed audience, armed men enter the scene and take the audience hostage. In a parked van outside, a group of undercover CIA agents prepare to enter the opera house. They plan to blend with the rest of the police. As they enter the opera house, the main character, an unnamed protagonist, has a mission to extract a person in a box.
Hold up. I don't mind if it's yes.
Object. The protagonist manages to retrieve both safely, but he returns to the opera house to remove some bombs. He gets almost killed while removing a bomb, but a mysterious man strangely saves him. The bullet that the mysterious man fired seems to go in reverse. The protagonist manages to escape, but some men capture him. On a railway, the men torture him, wanting him to tell the identity of his colleagues, but the protagonist remains silent. After seeing a window of opportunity that his friend provided, the protagonist swallows a suicide pill and dies. After that, however, the protagonist wakes up in a hospital bed. He learns from his boss that the pill is actually a test on whether he is loyal or not. Of course, he passed. Disheartened by what happened to him and his team, the protagonist wants to quit, but his boss gives him another assignment. His boss tells him to join an unknown organization named Tenet. The protagonist prepares for his mission inside of a windmill. After that, the protagonist travels to a facility via a ship and a car. Once he gets there, a scientist meets and briefs him about the nature of inverted bullets. The scientist explains that the bullet's entropy is inverted, which means that it goes backward instead of forward. When a gun is fired, the gun is catching bullets. The protagonist asks the scientist where the bullets came from, and she replies by saying that they came from the future. She adds that the possibility of inverting a bullet could be catastrophic for the world because it means that everything could be inverted or reversed. The protagonist traces the origin of the bullets from an arms dealer in Mumbai named Sanjay Singh. The place where Singh lives proves to be a challenge, and so the protagonist receives help from a man named Neil. Despite it being their first meeting, Neil knows many things about the protagonist, which shocks the protagonist. Together, the two of them enter Singh's place by bungee jumping upwards. There,
I actually want to watch this. I actually want to watch it. Sorry. Let me go back and get my foot. Let me get the foot upstairs. I actually want to watch it. I'm sorry. I want to watch it. Well, I just don't want it to play on its own, you know? Sorry, Chad, stop getting mad at me, dude. Stop getting mad at me. I want to watch the damn movie, man. Oh, the fans are loud. I'm sorry about that. I'll turn off the mic for a meeting.
Protagonist locates Singh, who is talking to his wife. The protagonist threatens Singh for information about the origin of the inverted bullets. Singh's wife, Priya, reveals that she is the arms dealer and that his husband is only a front of the business. Priya tells him that she knows about Tenet and that she sold the inverted bullets to a Russian man named Andrei Sater. She also tells him to talk to his contact that is out of Sater's reach. After gathering the information needed, the protagonist and Neil escape by bungee jumping again. The protagonist immediately travels to Britain to talk to Priya's contact, Sir Michael Crosby. While eating, Crosby tells the protagonist that he can reach Sater through his estranged wife, Catherine Barton or Kat. Crosby adds that the protagonist can approach Kat if he shows her a fake Goya painting, a forgery made by a man named Arepo. Kat and Arepo were close, and Sater knew about their relationship. After checking the fake Goya painting and telling her about Arepo, Kat agrees to talk to the protagonist about the painting. Kat tells the protagonist that the fake painting, which he auctioned to Sater, is being used by his husband to blackmail Kat, threatening her about being put to prison. Kat also tells her about their time on a yacht in Vietnam, where Sater offers Kat her freedom, but, as an exchange, Kat will never see her son again. Because of this, Kat finds the whole situation inescapable. Soon after, Sater's men arrive in the restaurant and immediately surround the two. Kat leaves the restaurant through the kitchen. The protagonist attempts to follow her, but he is surrounded again by Sater's men. The protagonist successfully fights his way off of the restaurant, but Kat already left when he's finished. The next day, the protagonist talks to Kat again and asks her where Sater keeps the drawing. Kat tells him that the drawing is held inside a Freeport storage facility in an airport at Oslo. After Neil successfully scouted the storage facility, he and the protagonist draws a plan to steal the drawing there. The plan is that they will pretend to enter the facility as rich men. At the same time, Neil's connections will drive an airplane full of gold bars toward the storage facility. At first, the plan is going well, as Neil and the protagonist maneuvers the various rooms. After reaching the final room, the protagonist and Neil get attacked by two mysterious men that emerged from a device. One of them is moving in reverse. Neil chases the other one while the protagonist fights the man moving in reverse. After defeating and catching one of them, the protagonist attempts to interview the mysterious man, shooting him in his right arm, but the man manages to escape. After what happened in Oslo, the protagonist meets with Priya again. She tells him that the device they saw in Oslo is an inverting device called turnstile, which explains why one of the men is moving in reverse. Priya also tells him that Sator is gathering plutonium. The protagonist meets with Kat again, lying to her about finding and destroying the drawing. He then asks her if she could introduce him to her husband Sator. Kat is understandably hesitant, but the protagonist provides her with a well-researched alibi. Afterward, the protagonist delivers Kat to Sator's yacht. There, Sator asks Kat about who the protagonist is. Kat tells him that he is a friend of hers. That night, the protagonist meets Sator over a dinner. Sator orders for his execution, but later spares him when the protagonist piques his interest. Sator then asks him to meet him tomorrow at 8 in the morning. The following day, Sator reveals to Kat that the drawing had not been destroyed on the Oslo incident, which means that the protagonist had lied to Kat. Afterward, Sator and Kat meet up with the protagonist on a boat. Kat removes Sator's safety harness and throws him to the sea in the middle of a boating activity. The protagonist saves Sator's life. In the yacht, Kat confronts the protagonist on his lie about the painting. She also misunderstands the protagonist's mission, as she thinks he's only there to make a deal with Sator regarding weapons. The protagonist tells her cryptically that Sator holds all of their lives, not just Kat's and her son's lives. After Sator summons him, the protagonist, before leaving the room, gives Kat a gun to protect herself. In Sator's room, Sator talks to the protagonist about plutonium. Here, Sator reveals to the protagonist about his backstory, that he grew up in a secret Soviet city called Stock 12, and that he saw a box that contained a future message and bars of gold. After their talk, Sator goes to his room and intends to punish Kat for attempting to kill him. But before he can do any significant damage, his men inform him that a box had arrived. Outside, the protagonist witnesses a helicopter dropping a metal box to the yacht. Sator opens the box and sees bars of gold. After noticing that one of it is missing, he sees one of his men had stashed it. Sator then promptly beats him to death with the gold. The protagonist is unaware that he is already seen. Sator's guard beats the protagonist up and delivers him to Sator. Sator orders him to go to Tallinn and steal an important object from a truck. After that, the protagonist meets up with Neil to talk about a highway heist. Meanwhile, Sator brings his wife to a warehouse. Kat threatens Sator by pointing a gun at him, the same gun given by the protagonist earlier. But Sator knows that Kat cannot shoot him and violently takes it off of here. He then beats her up. The protagonist and Neil successfully pull the heist off by surrounding the truck with 4 different trucks. After noticing that the object inside the briefcase is not plutonium but rather something else, they see a car driving backwards on the highway. The car shoots at them, misses, and then chases them afterward. The backward car's passenger shows himself to be Sator, pointing a gun at her wife's head. Sator threatens the protagonist that if he does not hand off the object, he will shoot Kat. The protagonist, having no choice, gives him the object, bouncing the briefcase on the hood of another backward-moving white car. But this is a ruse, as the object is instead thrown inside of the white car. Sator, however, leaves his wife in the car after getting what he wants. Without its driver, and because Kat is handcuffed, the protagonist jumps to the backward-moving car and stops it before colliding with other vehicles. After saving Kat, they get immediately surrounded by Sator's men. After Neil tells the protagonist that his allies are coming, the protagonist and Kat gets kidnapped by Sator's men, bringing them to warehouse shown earlier. Inside, there is a turnstile, and on the other side of the room, Sator threatens the protagonist that he will kill her if he does not reveal the object's whereabouts. The protagonist tells Sator that it is inside the glove box of their car. Sator, despite of this, still shoots Kat in the stomach. After this, Neil's allies, who are actually the Tenet, come in and save the protagonist. Sator manages to escape. Frustrated that Sator seems to know all of their moves, the protagonist threatens Neil. One of Neil's allies tells him that Sator knows these things because he sends half of his men back in time. To save Kat, the protagonist decides to enter the turnstile, along with Kat and Neil, and move back in time to when the Oslo incident happened. Neil's allies brief him about what to do when he is inverted. He must wear an oxygen mask filled with inverted air, and the effects of temperatures are in reverse. The protagonist enters the turnstile, turns himself inverted, and goes outside the warehouse to witness the world moving in reverse. He drives a white car and goes to the scene of the exchange. There, the inverted Sator finds out that the protagonist has placed the object on the white car. After crashing the white car, Sator successfully retrieves the object. The protagonist wakes up inside a cargo heading to Oslo, in reverse. Here, Neil tells both Kat and the protagonist about the principle of inversion. He also tells them about Sator's plan, which is to invert the world's entropy, thus making the whole world move back in time and then destroying it. They finally reach Oslo on the night of the incident, but the protagonist finds a bullet hole in his right arm. Before Neil could heal it, they hear that the airplane had already hit the facility, signaling that they have to move. While dressed in police uniforms, the protagonist and Neil carry Kat inside the burning facility.
They put my burger in between two fucking middle buns of a fucking... Dude, man, dude.
The protagonist enters first but finds out soon that he was actually the mysterious man he fought before. A fight ensues between the protagonist and his own self. It is also revealed that Neil found out about the man's identity while he was chasing him. The protagonist successfully reaches the turnstile and signals Neil to move. After Neil and Kat also successfully used the turnstile, all of them escape via an ambulance. Now that they are not inverted, the protagonist sets up a meeting with Priya in Oslo. Priya tells her that Sator is collecting 9 objects from the future to assemble an algorithm that will enable the inverse entropy of the world. The protagonist decides to stop Sator, but not before he lets Priya promise that both Kat and her son will not be hurt. While aboard a ship, the protagonist, Neil, and Kat are planning how to handle Sator. Kat reveals that Sator is dying from cancer. They then connect the dots that Sator intends to kill himself during their trip to Vietnam, and he wants to take the whole world with him. After this, the protagonist informs the Tenet about their plan to go back in time on the day of Kat and Sator's vacation in Vietnam. On that day, the Tenet will go to Sator's hometown while Kat distracts Sator in Vietnam. Before leaving for the mission, the protagonist gives Kat a phone to call him if she ever feels unsafe, instructing her to state her time and place. Tenet splits into 2 teams, Red Team and Blue Team. The Red Team will comprise of troops that moves in regular time, while the Blue Team will comprise of inverted troops. The plan is that both teams will simultaneously go to the battlefield. The protagonist and the leader of Red Team, Ives, will split from their team and handle the algorithm. On the day of the mission, Kat goes to Vietnam and manages to convince Sator that she is her past self. Meanwhile, a great battle ensues in Stock 12, as both regular and inverted troops storm Stock 12. The protagonist and Ives manage to split off. However, the entrance closes after they walk through a tripwire. Inside the underground facility, the protagonist sees a dead Blue Team soldier on the ground. They struggle to open the door. On the other side, one of Sator's henchmen handles the algorithm. Outside, Neil, who is inverted, tries to warn the protagonist about the tripwire. He removes his inversion and re-inverts a couple of times to warn them, but he fails again and again. The protagonist talks to Sator to stop his plan, but Sator is stubborn. He then orders his henchmen to kill the protagonist, but this gets blocked by the dead blue soldier on the ground that returned to life and then runs away in reverse afterward. Then, the protagonist attacks the henchman and defeats him. He also manages to secure the algorithm. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, Kat shoots Sator, killing him. She then dives to the sea and leaves on a boat. After securing the algorithm, the 3 men, the protagonist, Neil, and Ives, decide, at first, to separate the object and then kill themselves so that no one can find it. However, Neil gives his piece to the protagonist. He also reveals that the protagonist is the one that recruited him to be part of the Tenet in the future. He adds that they actually knew each other for a long time, but this doesn't happen yet. As Neil is leaving, the protagonist notices his backpack is the same as the inverted dead blue soldier that saves him earlier. The protagonist asks him if things will change in the future, to which Neil answers that what's happened, happened. Back in Britain, Priya attempts to assassinate Kat for knowing too much. But the protagonist stops her by—
Wait, so he already died? No, I get it. I get it. He says that because they already met in the future. Because it happens, already happened. So now he has to die in reverse from life to death.
Priya attempts
Because he went to the tourniquet, the spinner wheel, right? And he went to the reverse. So doesn't matter what happens, he has to go back to go dying.
to assassinate Kat for knowing too much. But the protagonist stops her by killing her after guessing what Priya will do and receiving Kat's call of her exact location and time.
Sorry.
The movie ends with the protagonist concluding that he is the mastermind behind Tenet. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this.
The reality is, this movie is that it just wasn't that good. Okay? Don't get me wrong. The directing is good. The imagery is good. The writing is decent. It's good. The problem that I have is the vision for the actual plot and the movie itself has a problem. The problem is that it doesn't let the viewer enjoy the movie. Because there's always another level of explanation past the other one. There's never a level of understanding. It's always evolving to the point where at the end you're like, oh, okay, and now it's over. So it's like, okay, well that's kind of annoying because I didn't get really to enjoy the plot and development because it was explaining the whole time. The explanations never stop. I'm not kidding. You watch this movie and it explains until the very last second. And that's how even the characters in the movie don't know what the fuck the plot is, and they're at the very end of it, dude. He's like, dude, hey man, here's the plot of the movie, motherfucker. Okay. And I was like, man, I get it now. Imagine the fucking viewer, how did they feel, man?
Happened. Back in Britain, Priya attempts to assassinate Kat for knowing too much.
That's because we already watched the movie. You watched this movie, chat, 10 years ago. Wanna know why? Because you actually watched it from the future, in reverse. That's what happened. You actually already watched this movie before it even came out. It's a real thing. It's real. Shit.